Dear audience, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here today on behalf of our rector, Pamela Bibovic, and Vice President Nick Bos, in a very hot theater. Although I must say that the way over here was, I think, a little bit more hot. So I hope you are okay, and in particular, our colleagues in the gown. You may also want to get rid of it. It's okay. I will give permission. I think the rector will allow it. Oh, she doesn't. Okay. There we go already. There we go, immediately. Welcome in particularly to our distinguished Minister Robert Dijkgraaf, our keynote speaker of today. Now you can imagine that we are very honored to have the Minister of Education, Culture and Science in our midst. And it is his first opening of an academic year in his capacity as a minister. And we are very glad that you chose Maastricht University for your first opening. And a special welcome also to your wife, Pia de Jong, whose columns in the NRC I always read with great pleasure, I have to say, so I miss that. Welcome, of course, also to our representatives of the provincial governments and our local politicians, especially Ms. Annemarie Bente-Strake, the mayor of Maastricht, and Mr. Roel Wever, the mayor of the city of Heerlen. A warm welcome further to representatives of foreign governments, our partner universities, the rector of Aachen University, of Bochum University, someone who you know very well, and of Hasselt University, and of course also our business partners and representatives and guests of the Hastings Foundation. Welcome also to our supervisory board members and the chair, Ms. Annelies van der Pauw, and of course to all of you of Maastricht University staff, students and alumni. When thinking about the content of my first opening, because it's also my first opening of this academic year, I had so many topics I wanted to focus on. Recognition and rewards, and where we are in the implementation at the moment, social safety at universities, lifelong learning developments, and in particular our ambitions in this region to take responsibility to address the challenges the ever-changing labor markets poses for so many of us. I decided, however, not to talk about these important topics close to my heart, but to focus on the theme of internationalization. And I will be honest with you, it will not surprise you that I will strongly defend our university's internationalization strategy, because I truly believe that for a country as the Netherlands, we cannot afford to hide behind our famous dikes. On the other hand, I will also not shy away to see the challenges and at times also the dilemmas we face and the fear some people in our society experience. My words will hopefully acknowledge these challenges, but will also explain why we need to preserve what we have accomplished. Now, our country is a country that cherishes its traditions and its rituals. Traditions and rituals that all have a very special place on our calendar. No, I'm not talking about King's Day or Carnival, which, by the way, we call Vastelavond here. So I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, actually. But at least I'm trying to integrate. No, I'm referring to a ritual that seems to have become a new annual tradition. The routine that warns us of the threat of internationalization for Dutch higher education at the opening of almost every academic year. So therefore, I was of course not surprised about Dutch newspaper headlines underlying again that our country has too many international students and that internationalization at our universities is the reason why Dutch students will not be able to choose their study of preference. And how contradictory it actually can be, because in current politics, we see politicians, Dutch politicians, increasingly opening to European or global cooperation, whether it's in the area of climate issues, the energy crisis, or defense and security. So the conviction that international cooperation is necessary to address these complex issues is stronger than ever. While at the same time, we see that Dutch universities are more and more put in a frame of returning to the nation-state identity, following also continuous fierce debates in Parliament on, for instance, imposing legal barriers for incoming international students and problematizing the use of English at our universities. Now, if international students massively choose the Netherlands for their education, do we as Dutch society also have a good reason to welcome them? The often heard response, it's all about the money universities earn through the tuition fees paid by foreign students. The image of internationalization is intellectually, socially, economically and culturally so much richer, and the attack so destructive, not to give a fierce rebuttal here today. We seem to forget the advantages international mobility has, not only for the Dutch regions and for the Netherlands as a whole, but also because our biggest societal problems are global and can only be solved through international cooperation. And then understanding each other's backgrounds and perspectives will help. Let us also not underestimate the importance of the international classroom at home, in our own country. Is this not an essential tool for future leading generations to learn how difficult it is actually to act as a global citizen? Because it constantly challenges your own perceptions, your own beliefs and your ideas. And how many Dutch people do not see the benefits of spending time in another society or doing an internship or study abroad? But when foreign students come to the Netherlands, we more and more seem to question those benefits. Allow me also to express my general unbelief that I feel the need to defend our internationalization strategy here today, because only recently, in 2018, the Association of Dutch Universities, together with the Association of Dutch Universities of Applied Sciences, they presented the sector's internationalization agenda 2018. The agenda presented the forecasts for the coming decade relating to the tension on our labor markets, in particular in the sectors care, education and technology, and the decrease in the influx of Dutch students based on the demographic development of the Netherlands. And the agenda called upon the government to support the vision that our country should continue to positioning itself as a thriving, knowledge-based society and to allow international students to enter our labor market, to fulfill also our future needs. Now, it will not surprise you that Maastricht University proudly presents itself as the European University of the Netherlands, geographically, content-wise, and looking at the composition of our staff and student body, we are the most European province and university of the Netherlands. So internationalization is a fundamental and distinctive element of our strategy, our courses, and our success. And as the youngest university of the Netherlands, strong in interdisciplinary education and research, we aim to create impact not only scientifically, but also by heavily investing in our region, both in Limburg as in the wider EU region. So our commitment to the regional Brightland campuses, to our Brussels campus, and to the development of a true European university comprising 10 other European universities through the UVA Alliance shows where we stand for, and more on UVA later in our program. Now, beyond this very European focus, our institution participates in various global networks, and our academic staff cooperates with academics and institutions in almost every country of the world. So global engagement is for our university just as important as is cherishing our local and regional roots. Think global, act local, is what we often say. And such a vision fulfills one of the necessary preconditions for internationalization, and that is that you have to have a comprehensive approach. Now, the choice to make our university bilingual also helps, because we are rooted in the Netherlands, in its most beautiful province, Limburg, and integrating both language and cultural education in our programs and policies is also for Maastricht University of utmost importance. So already for a long time, we provide Dutch language courses for free and offer many of our foreign students make use of. So internationalization must not be considered as preventing an experience in Dutch culture, but as a means of enhancing it, and by the way, also for the Dutch students at our university. Now, another precondition for a convincing strategy is that internationalization should be intrinsically motivated, rather than arising purely from the search for a revenue model. With 80% of our immediate surroundings lying in 2 foreign countries, with the historical tradition of our city and region as a connector to other European countries, with a very interwoven international economy, and with a lively regional, social and cultural life, internationalization at Maastricht University has evolved since the 1990s as a logical consequence and not as a fancy of our times. So internationalization is therefore internalized in this university. It's in our DNA, yet it can only thrive when it's based on a clear vision, including also adhering to some core values such as diversity and inclusivity, solidarity, openness, genuinely listening to other views, combined with small-scale education in a true international classroom that also provides the setting to test and experience those values. That is where we stand for. Now, I'm the first to acknowledge that most visions and core values develop from an ideal, and that implementing that ideal into actual policies and programs requires a long breath. And on that road, many dilemmas and challenges occur, at home, close to us, and abroad. Now, allow me to share some of these in the remainder of my talk. At home, so this is what I would refer to internationalization at home, we continuously need to work on the integration of our staff and our students. Do all groups already feel welcome and at ease here? How diverse is our university if we look beyond nationality? Are we attractive enough for first-generation students, for migrants and refugees? Have we enabled a safe environment on the basis of which our members of our community, wherever they are from, and whatever culturally or socially embedded perspectives they might bring in, do they feel safe to speak up, signal their boundaries when they are violated? And of course, also practical challenges arise. The influx of students in general poses challenges to universities, not only in Maastricht, relating, for instance, to housing restraints and increasing work pressure for our staff, so that universities need a larger toolbox of measures through which we can control the number of students. That is self-evident. I warn, however, not to develop a one-size-fits-all approach that our country is sometimes so good at. The growth of students at universities is also not only because of the increasing number of international students that find our universities. Also Dutch students more and more want to study at the university, and the societal pressure to do just that is a big concern, and our minister will also talk about this topic later in his keynote. Now, as to housing issues, we take the current restraints, of course, serious and are constantly discussing with our local stakeholders, with our municipality, how we can contribute to housing development, which is not the core task of a university. While at the same time, we also consider the delivery of education in other cities in the region to diminish the pressure on the city of Maastricht. So in 10 years from now, we may even need to call ourselves the University of Limburg again. Although I think our mayor will not be happy with that. So it's still a joke, Annemarie. So is the housing crisis or the large influx of students at universities in general, is that then a reason to discourage internationals to come here? I would say in an ever-increasing tense labor market, I would argue that we need all talent. And if we want international students to find an attractive job on the Dutch or Limburg labor market, we need to ensure that the prospects are attractive. And those who have already shown an interest in our country by spending their studies here, often entire bachelors, they should be cherished and encouraged to stay. An investment in Brightlands is for us, therefore, again, not a standalone decision based on developing only the economic strength of the region. No, it also provides a potential landing place for our international students. So internationalization is, and I cannot say it enough, crucial for the development of our region. And please note, and I cannot say this enough, almost 20% of our foreign alumni stay in the Netherlands, which is a considerable strength for our labor markets and the economy. And the recent good news on the support from the Dutch government to invest in the construction of the Einstein telescope in our region will also pose new challenges to a new to-be developed sector, where all talent is necessary and welcome. The last topic, internationalization abroad. I also want to share some of the dilemmas we face here, and the dilemmas we also as executive board and deans of the faculties face. Now, I do not have to tell this audience that science and scholarship can only work with the concept of crossing borders. This does not only refer to borders of academic disciplines, it also refers to geographical borders. There is no national science. Science is depending on international principles that require interaction and dialogue across all borders. However, also here, the dilemmas are increasing because international cooperation starts to get sour. In Dutch we would say het gaat schuren, when we cooperate with partners in countries that have oppressive regimes or structurally violate universal human rights. What do we do then? Do we stop cooperation, or do we wait till the government asks us to put an end to all institutional cooperation, as was recently done with regard to Russia for aggressively attacking the Ukraine? When and based on what do we as a sector or as a university make this difficult consideration? If you ask me, although I understand that it is a devilish dilemma, we should not stop cooperation with an individual organization and with our academic colleagues coming from a country whose government vision we do not share. Of course, we must be able to justify why we work with partner institutions, but without being presumptuous or one-sidedly reflecting on our own Western-dominated value system. In the assessment of international partnership agreements, values such as freedom of thinking and expression of opinion, transparency and diversity are of utmost importance and should be shared values when we enter into a partnership. And shouldn't we support individual institutions and individual academics that cherish these values and openly do so even stronger, coming from countries with oppressive regimes? The geopolitical changes in the world's politics affect our daily lives more and more. And there are no easy answers here, also not for me. But when the world is at war, should science follow, or should we try to continue to work together based on long existing scientific values and principles? Now, and as long as you allow me to be the president of your university, I will defend the openness and accessibility of our university based on solidarity, shared values, and enabling the continuous creativity of the scientific process. Now, I already warned at the beginning that I don't have all the answers to these complex topics. I do believe that we need a more in-depth discussion on the different dilemmas and challenges that internationalization brings along, whether it's at home, in our own country, or abroad. So let us use this year to have an open discussion between policymakers, politicians, and universities on the concerns and the assets of internationalization in higher education. And who knows, maybe next year we won't see the headlines I earlier referred to. And when having that discussion, I do want to appeal for an end in framing the internationalization in the university sector as a cash cow, because it is so much more, with tremendous benefits for society, economically, as well as intellectually, socially, and culturally. And on a final note, Maastricht University is in the end actually very Dutch. We also cherish our traditions, especially the ones that are so essential for us, for expressing also whom we are. As we approach our 50th anniversary, we will, as always, proudly say that our international focus and our European perspectives are here to stay, as they are at the core of our institutional tradition. Thank you very much for your attention.